Hey, Dave.
Hey Todd, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank
I
you.
guess the big question on everybody's mind is, or one of the big questions everybody's mind is what went into the decision in center field, specifically with Odubel Herrera?
Well, tough decision. I mean, as you know, went right down to the wire. A lot of conversations, different debates. Some people thought one way, other people thought the other. I think finally what came down to at the end, first of all, we want to look at Hazley a little bit at the end. And so we got a chance to look at him. He hasn't had a lot of at-bats, but he swung the bat well when we saw him here at the end. We think he's ready to take that next step and get a chance to play. The second thing is with Odubel, who has done, at times did very well, but at the end of the camp, he was not consistent offensively. He's hit the ball of the ballpark, very talented. And I think for us, when you look at Odubel's situation, you're talking about somebody who had 50 spring training at bats over a couple of years. And we are just saying it's going to be tough for him to be consistent at this point. He just hasn't seen enough. At times you see the flashes. So for us, it was better for him to go out and play on an everyday basis and see what happens coming over the next time period. But we like him. He did well. But that was really the final deterrent, just for him, just go out and get more at bats so we can hopefully see more consistency of the good swings.
And then you see Quinn and Hazley in like a platoon thing, or how do you see that working out?
Well, of course, that's Joe's decision,
right?
When it comes down to that. The one thing we talked about with Quinn, and in today's game, and it'll be interesting to see what takes place as far as how the ball flies out of the ballpark. It didn't fly out as much as it normally does during spring training. He has an element of his game that not many people do, which is base stealing. And of course, he's versatile. So as a 26 guy, platoon guy, however he uses it, we thought there were a lot of value at this time for somebody to come in, try to steal a base late in the game, somebody to pinch run, try to score for somebody who's not fleet of foot. So in addition, I don't know how much he'll platoon him. That'll be up to him, up to Joe. But we thought there was some real value as far as having Quinn on our club.
Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Let's go to Jim Salisbury and then Scott Lauber.
Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Jim. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right, thank you. Hey, so before you met with Joe yesterday and Sam to pick that final spot, Odubel or Hazley, did you consult with ownership to see if you were going to have ownership approval to carry him if you decided to carry him for baseball reasons?
Well, I didn't consult with them yesterday, but I've talked to them as far back as the beginning of spring training starting. And they were always consistent with me to pick the best team that you feel is up to you. So that's your decision. As long as he continues to follow through with the protocols, which he has, he's been great, worked on time, worked hard. He is in a position where you can tell that there's a part of him that is very much sorry for what he did and continues to echo that. So no, they didn't get involved at all. Actually, what ended up happening is that once we made the decision, we talked to him. I sent him, like I always do, especially here at the end, just an email to update them on what decision we made.
In your thinking, as president of baseball operations, did public relations enter your decision making at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it really performance related at this point. It was hard for me to come to a final conclusion. I mean, I guess ultimately the final decision becomes mine. But it was hard for me to come to that because I haven't seen Hazley play very much. He looked good the first, game or two in spring training. And then at the end, he swung the bat well. I know last year was not his best year, but some people really like him. In Odubel's case, in the beginning of spring, I thought, wow, this guy really looks impressive. And then he had the struggles a little bit. He did hit the home run the other day and the double and another base hit in Lakeland. But for me, it was just really a matter of who I thought would be best for our club at this time.
Would you have any reservations to bring him if a need arose?
No, not if he was performing. If he was performing up to capability. The other thing, too, I don't want to dismiss, and this was not the final determining factor, but if it's close, losing another rostered player was not something that appealed to us. I mean, if it was a far away win, you don't lose a rostered player with Hazley, and we do with Herrera, and we're already in a position where we lost well, we didn't lose Muzziotti. He got put on the restricted list. And if you continue, we go forward with the other moves with Kinsler, Joyce, and then most likely Torreyes gets added tomorrow, just safety purposes, make sure he's okay. Well, there's another spot that we end up needing. So you add another one, then that's 4. And we really didn't like that if we could avoid it.
Right. Okay. Thanks so much, Dave.
You're welcome.
Hi, Dave. Now that you've had 6 weeks, in spring training and 28 games worth of exhibition games, I wonder how you feel about the pitching depth in the organization, knowing that it's, coming off an unprecedented year last year. Don't know how that's going to go pitching wise, how many guys you'll need. How do you feel about, everything you have in the organization now? Are you comfortable with your pitching depth?
Well, first of all, you never have enough of it. I mean, I'll start off with that because I've been in positions where you get decimated. So you always want more. I like the depth close to the big league level. You start talking about how we put our club together, and then we still have Howard and we have Romero down below. And there's some like Suarez we never saw all spring. A lot of people really like him a great deal. Again, I can't answer that, but and then we do have some other good arms. One of the things that happened here at the end, it was not pretty at the end of the game with some of those guys coming over. What we did, and this was from my perspective, and it's, there's some controversy on this, but I was brought up in the old school that once you option a guy out, you leave him optioned. So some of the guys that might have been our next depth, the Rossos, that type of group, we since we optioned them, we let them stay there. So I think we have depth. Now, if you get, again, too deep, I get concerned about it. It's something we'll continue to pursue if we can find more. But I think overall we're okay. We're not great, but we're okay. And hopefully we just won't be burdened with a bunch of injuries at one time.
How much did the preservation of that depth have to do with some of those decisions you made at the end of camp, whether it was optioning Romero because he had an option, and keeping someone like David Hale because he didn't have an option? Was that a major factor at the end in terms of like making sure you had enough?
It was a factor of discussion for sure. And we talked about that. Really in that situation more so when we talked about it, if we had kept JoJo and done something with Hale, we would have lost Hale, in my opinion. I don't think he would have cleared waivers. But he has the ability to pitch multiple innings, which not many of our guys do. So for having that other person on the club, it not only helps the depth, but you talk to your manager, in my case with Joe, and you try to work with them on those type of roles. And Joe thought, well, in addition to Velasquez, he'd like to really have somebody else that adds that to him, to the pitching staff. So that was the most important part of it, but depth still was involved.
And just lastly, how do you view Spencer Howard in terms of how you're going to, utilize him and make the most of however many innings he's going to be able to pitch for you?
Yeah. I don't want to be for people really for us, we're going to limit his innings this year because of the number of innings that he threw. We really like him a whole bunch. We think he's going to be a starting pitcher in the future. The problem is if you start him off starting right away, stretching him out to 5 or 6 innings, you burn through those innings before you can blink, really. So what we're going to try to do is use him out of the pen. Sometimes he may start, but if he starts, it'll be a 2 to 3 inning type of appearance, and use him in that middle long relief. That ideally he's thrown the way that he is capable, and we think he will, that if we ever had to use Velasquez into the rotation, he'd be a real good guy to step into that type of role. But there'll be times that he may pitch an inning. We're really going to watch those innings closely. The other thing is that, though, tied to that, we will never with him just say, okay, crank it up in 12 pitches. That where we've discussed that with him. We've discussed it internally. He's going to get all the proper time that he needs to warm up. We think it's extremely important for him at this stage of his career because he's never done that type of thing. Because eventually he's going to be a very important member of the Phillies organization as we move forward.
Thank you.
Great. Hey, Scott, I just hope you didn't read that whole thesis, undergraduate thesis. It put you to sleep, I'm sure. If you did.
Next, we'll go to Matt Breen and then Bob Brookover.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, Matt.
When you talk about limiting Howard's innings, how important is it to keep an eye on next season that you are able to have him, a full go to be a starting pitcher, but finding a balance to prepare him this year by limiting him by not when you limit him this year, that doesn't prevent him from next year being a full go.
Sure. Well, I'm not going to sit here and it's a tricky formula. It's one that you need to try to just stay on top of. I think in today's game, even though you have a certain number of innings that you may have in mind for growth from year to year, we're so more sophisticated as far as the medical devices that we have today, the strength devices of a pitcher's shoulders, that you can have a pulse on that. Of course, we measure spin rates, and if they drop down significantly, that gives you some indication. And maybe at some point he pitches a little bit more than we're originally thinking because he is so healthy and he's feeling so good. But that'll be a juggling act for us all year long to try to accomplish that, but also put him in a position where he can start for us next year.
And the way that you constructed the bullpen with only one left-handed pitcher, is that okay because of the 3-batter rule that you need guys that can get both out anyway?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we talked about that same thing a great deal in our meetings. Yes, that's a contributing factor. The other major contributing factor is that our right-handed bullpen people, all in all, many of them get left-handed hitters out very well. And so they have the ability to do that. So Joe feels comfortable if you talk about, and you look at some of them have reverse splits, but if you talk about Bradley, if you talk about Neris, if you talk about Brogdon, even Kinsler's done pretty good versus left-handers. Coonrod's done pretty well. We think he can get righty and lefty. So we didn't think we needed that simple, specific matchup just to have another lefty because of the ability of our right-handed relievers to get left-handed hitters out also.
And do you see a closer, or do you think it's a closer by committee, or is it just up to Joe to decide that?
When Joe, we talked about it yesterday, I said, that's your decision. So whatever way you decide to go, there's a lot of people that have had the experience and feel comfortable doing so. And I'll let him tell you guys that.
Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Hey, Dave, what do you need to see, and how long do you think it will take for Scott Kingery to get back to the big leagues?
Well, I think he started the first part of it, which was the effort and the work and the acknowledgement. When we sent him out, my days get meshed together. I guess it was it Sunday, a couple of days ago? He was very open with us about how he got to the point of where he has. I mean, this guy is a good player, really good player, and he's got still tremendous tools. I saw him happen to play in Reading a couple of years ago when he was down there 3 years ago, and he was really good. He's the type of guy who said, wow, that guy's a good player, and he had a good start. He needs to continue to work on what he presently is, which is leveling his swing, but he's also in a position where then you need to start to produce. And I think part of that is you start to hit the ball on a regular basis, a consistent basis. And as we told him, we're not interested in that he has to hit a bunch of home runs. We're more concerned with line drives, and he'll hit some home runs because he's strong enough. But it's one of those where we just need to see that consistent improvement. And I think for him, you go through this throughout your career, probably playing just every day, you have the better chance to do that. And so that's what we want to try to do with him, and we'll keep a close eye on him.
Do you think he would benefit from? What do you see him being? Do you see him as a super utility guy? It's been a debate since he's gotten here. Is he a super utility guy? Would he be better at one position? Where do you guys see that for the future?
Well, I'm going to give you the answer that others have told me because I haven't seen him have a productive offensive spring. And also I'm in a position where I haven't really seen him play around because we decided to give him a chance to compete for center field, but everybody tells me that he can do that. So our hope is that he still becomes an everyday player. That's what our hope is. Now, some of these multi-utility players end up playing every day at different positions, sometimes center, sometimes short, sometimes second base in his case, and sometimes other outfield spots. So that's very possible, but we look at him as being a guy who potentially, we still like him as having a chance to be an everyday player.
And one last thing, is there one specific, would you like to narrow the voices in his head in terms of trying to get to the swing path you guys want? And is there one person maybe that you think would be best suited for that?
Well, we talked about that a great deal. Joe Dillon has had a good relationship with him, and we had a couple potential guys. Jason Ochard, who's in charge of our minor league hitting, he's going to go to our alternate site, and he'll be the main contact person for Scott at this time. So he'll be the one that's working with him. But Joe will also have in close contact with him. And we could bring somebody in there later on, but we thought that this was the best way to go. Give them one voice on a consistent basis, hope the connection's there, and then hope we get the results we're looking to have.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
All right, we have time for 3 more. We'll go to Rob Kessner, then Mike McGarry, and we will finish with Destiny.
Hey, Dave. Question off the top. We spoke to you back in January, and you were asked a question about whether the Phillies and you considered them in a transition period, and you said pretty bluntly, "We're not in transition. We have too many good players. We're thinking about winning." Now that you've seen this team up close, has your opinion changed? How has it changed? What are your expectations for this team as opening day approaches?
Well, we're in a strong division, no question about it. But we're trying to win the division. That's what we're trying to do, make the playoffs and win the division. That's what our goal is at this time. Now, again, I don't think we are not going to mortgage our future, trade our top number 1 draft choices for a guy for 1 year at this time. Now, if we get to July and we're 5 games in front and you need to be in a position where you need to add some, we can have further discussions on those type of moves. But we're in a position where right now, I think we can compete. You look at our everyday lineup, it's really good. Our starting rotation, it's interesting. I mean, I read articles all the time. It's like Zach Eflin, he doesn't even exist in national publications. We really like him a whole bundle. I mean, it's not just for us, Nola and Wheeler. I mean, Eflin's very good. And I think as 4 and 5s, Moore and Anderson have a good chance to help us. Our bullpen, we think it's improved. We hope it's improved. They have to go out and do that. And if all those things click, I do think we'll score runs and we have a chance to compete at that point.
And Dave, just a quick follow-up, not related to this, but just big picture MLB, and I'm looking at the exact numbers. So yesterday, an announcement came out from baseball that if 85% of personnel that are in tier 1 are vaccinated, that COVID restrictions can be brought back, can be pulled back. From an organizational standpoint, do you stress or do you try in any way to talk to players and people in tier 1 and encourage them to get vaccinated? Like, what is the organization's feeling on that?
Well, really, it's an individual decision. That's the way I look at it. I would never force anybody to do something like that. That's an individual. However, I would point out, and I think we would point out, the players probably point out that if we get to 85%, their lives change dramatically as far as travel is concerned. But I would never force anybody to do that. That's up to them and what they decide to do.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Dave, you've had a spring training now to work side by side with Joe Girardi. Has anything about seeing him up close surprised you? And how would you just characterize, the relationship you guys have started to build?
Well, enjoyed it a great deal. I like Joe a lot. He's a good person. He's not only a good person, but a very good baseball man. He's got a pulse of the total situation. He's a good communicator. He works with his staff well. He has a good pulse of the players. And it's still hard with the COVID. You just can't walk in the clubhouse and kind of walk around and put your arms around people. That's not allowed. But I really like him. He's on top of things. He's aware of what's taking place. He's open to conversations about just our team. He's not a guy that says, "Oh, I'm 100% correct with this." He's willing to listen to what other people have to say. And yet he's strong enough to express his opinion. So I like working with him a great deal and look forward to it.
Yeah. And just another area, is there a question mark with the team now that you say, hey, if this question mark works out right for us or works out well for us, we can be this much better? Is there a key area there that if this goes right for us, we're going to be this much better this year?
Well, I don't mean to sound Pollyannish, but health is really important, because if you're healthy, then I think our positional players will score runs. I think we'll be good. So if they're healthy, that takes care of itself. I mean, we need to be in a position where our pitching, and not just the ones and twos and even Eflin and some of the guys, they just need to go out there and do it. Starters and bullpen in that regard. Of course, even if our starters last year would have pitched like they did, and I think with Matt Moore and Chase Anderson, we're in good shape with Vince backing them up, and then we would have been fine. But our bullpen needs to be in a position where they step forward and do the job, and I think they're capable of doing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Dave, what went into the decision to release CJ Chatham, and why did you guys not try to get him through waivers?
Well, the problem is that in Chatham's, we needed a roster spot, right? When we optioned him out, we had the right to do that, and he wasn't on our club at that point. However, you can't ask outright waivers on an injured player. That's against the rules. So it really was the only way that we could get him off our roster, and we needed that roster spot at this time. Now, we do have an interest and desire to keep him in the organization. He knows that, and we're hopeful that he'll be in a position where he may join us and sign a AAA contract. We'll wait and we'll see.
Is Brad Miller going to be fully healthy for opening day?
It looks that way. I saw him last night, actually, when we were waiting for our luggage here at the ballpark, and asked him how he did, and he said, I feel great. I don't have any problems. And you can see he's a little rusty. I mean, he had 2 good at-bats yesterday, and he needs more at-bats. He's going to have more at-bats today and tomorrow in our simulated games. But yes, he's healthy. He does not have any pain whatsoever.
And can you clarify what CJ Chatham's injury was?
He had a oblique.
Thank you.
He tried to play through it too in his defense, which I give him credit. We didn't really know that at the time, but when we talked to him, he tried to play through it.